CNT125. We're on Chapter 10. We're on the section on malware risks. Malware is short for malicious software. Once upon a time, we would use terms like virus, etc. All those have gotten lumped under malware. Malware is kind of the big umbrella term for many different types of software that might cause harm. So, malware, any program or piece of code designed to intrude upon, may or may not do damage, but might just cause inconveniences. So these include viruses, Trojan Horse, worms, bots, ransomware, those kind of things. They remind us of some resources we can use to keep track of any kind of outbreaks of malware, and this would be the kind of stuff, if you're working at a company and you're responsible for this part of your network management or security, this would be the kind of thing you're keeping track of daily. The Kaspersky had a website out here that shows you a map, and then on other tabs shows you lists of and dates of and names of certain types of malware, and usually they put the severity on it, whether it's like a low severity or a high severity, one you need to respond to now, or one that like, okay, your next update will catch that one, etc. There's also SonicWall has a security center as well. It does very similar thing, showing you where the attacks are prevalent, lists of, etc. Virus. Program is going to replicate itself with the intent to infect more computers, just like having a virus as in sickness, a cold. You know, as I sneeze, I'm spreading it to other people. Virus program, as it comes in contact with other connections, whether storage devices, other files, is trying to propagate and move its way along. Some of these might just be annoying, causing a flashing message or pictures on the screen, or might actually cause damage too. Trojan Horse. This disguises itself as something else. Maybe something useful, but actually causes harm. Hey, this is a new game, but really maybe it's installing something else in the background. Maybe it's erasing hard files. Maybe it's using your mail system to spam plenty of other people. Maybe it's using your email to reflect information out to other people, make it look like a legit email, that sort of thing. Worms typically run independently of other software, but travels between computers across the network, that sort of thing. Transmitted by any type of file transfer, including email attachments. And they don't usually alter other programs in the same way viruses do, but they can carry viruses. Bots, short for robot. These are typically a little program that's going to run automatically, and it might sit quietly for a while until it's called upon by the control server, the one that's actually doing maybe the distributed denial of service attack. So it might get installed there and just sit on your system for a couple days, couple weeks, until a certain day comes around where they're going to basically call upon all these bots on thousands of computers to send information to blah server to create this distributed denial of service attack. Ransomware. This is a program that is going to lock a system down, a user down, lock a system down, lock a laptop down, and won't allow anyone to access to it until a ransom, money, etc. is paid. And there's threat of encrypting the hard drive, erasing the hard drive, etc., etc. And it basically kind of locks it down of like, hey, you're not going to have access to anything until you pay blah, then we send you the code and unlock it. Some characteristics make malware harder to detect. Some are going to encrypt it to prevent detection. So you scan for blah virus and it's encrypted. And it's like, well, I don't know what that is, so I'm going to keep moving. The malware checker. It's stealth. Acts like it's a legit program. It replaces part of legit program code and kind of sits in there. Polymorphism changes its characteristics. So maybe the first malware scan on it didn't catch it. It morphs so the next malware scan doesn't catch it, etc. Every time it's transferred to a system, it's, changes a little way, so it does not look like what showed up on somebody else's computer. Some are time dependent. They sit dormant until a certain day or time comes along to trigger it. So it might sit there and not get detected until it gets triggered. And malware can exhibit more than one of these characteristics too, which again makes it harder to find and locate and get rid of. There's another resource they shared. They shared it in there. I think it was Semantic, but Semantic is now part of Trellix. So this is their research center, this is where it has lists and shows you the severity of a particular type of ransomware, particular type of virus, etc. Again, these would be resources that you know, in your company, if you're in charge of malware updates, that sort of thing, these would be the kinds of things you're checking daily. You know, you're checking maybe every morning when you go in and making sure your malware system is checking for blah virus, blah bot, blah malware. Risk assessment and management. Risk management happens at 2 layers: security risk assessment and business risk assessment. So the security risk assessment, oh my goodness, Mr. Brown's having trouble pronouncing here. The security risk assessment evaluates the threats and vulnerabilities of the network itself. So what would be a threat to the network? People trying to change the firmware on a router. So I'm going to do A, B, and C to try to prevent that. The business risk assessment evaluates the impact of those threats on the business processes. So again, let's take the example I just mentioned. If somebody is able to change the firmware on a router and cause the router to be bricked, what would that affect in the business? Does it affect their ability to move data in and out? Does it affect their ability to answer customer orders? Does it affect their ability to make phone calls? Does it affect the ability to, they're processing the customer orders here and they have to send that information down to the shipping area? Would it affect the ability to get those messages down to the shipping area to ship product out, etc., etc.? What would affect in the business if blah thing happened? In some companies, some cases, there might not be much affected by a certain outage. But in another business, there might be a significant amount of things affected that might cause everything business-wise to come to a screeching halt until it's fixed. So you would need to look at what does it affect in the network and how does that affect the business processes in that particular company or that particular site. Business process, series of steps that accomplishes defined goal. So again, I was kind of using the customer thing. What's the series of steps involved in receiving an order from a customer, pulling that order, packaging that order, and delivering that product or putting it on the truck to get it delivered? So what gets affected? What steps in that process get affected if there is a outage in a part of a network? From the IT perspective, so we're trying to make sure that the people responsible for network security understands the business processes. We need to understand what's happening in this company to know what parts of the network are highly critical to keep operating, what parts of the network are maybe low critical. That, if there's a problem there, we're going to fix it. But if there's a problem in this area, all hands on deck. We have to fix this now. The other area might be we'll get it in the morning. It's not going to affect anybody overnight because there's nobody there, but I'm going to go in early and fix it before people show up, for the 8 o'clock work shift or whatever. So knowing the business and how a outage in a certain part of the network would affect the business. Those are the 2 things they're mentioning here. Vendor risk assessments. This would be a third-party risk assessment. Is there evaluates the security and compliance risk related to suppliers and vendors a company does business with. So the vendor risk assessment is now going to look at security and compliance risks related to any suppliers and vendors that a company would work with. So what's the risk there? A posture assessment is a thorough examination of each aspect of the network to determine how it might be compromised. So again, looking at maybe looking at the switches and the wireless access points and that sort of thing, moving your way into the core routers, that sort of thing, or the core switches, moving data around. What would be the effect if one of those got damaged, etc., etc. A security audit is an assessment performed by a company that's been accredited by a network security agency, if you will. they're going to now look at a number of aspects. And this is going to be usually an outside vendor that comes in to do a security audit on your company, your facility, your network. And they're going to look at quite a few different areas to see, is things updated? Are you using this? Are you doing a malware? Are you, malware system? Are you updating regularly your desktops? Are you updating your operating systems, et cetera, et cetera? So looking at all those pieces. All right, when we come back in the next one, we'll talk about some attack simulations.